This is one of the safest choices.
My buddy Craig Crumples, winner of the Legacy Open in New Jersey. He is also 2-0 right now with Black Aggro. And Blood-Soaked Champion. That card is no joke.
Yeah. Turn 1, Tormented Hero for Lance. Jadine has a Mystic Monastery. That's the Jeskai Tri-land.
I really enjoy the Tri-lands. They're simple, clean, powerful with a cost. They enable the decks you want them to enable. It sounds, it's simple, but these are sweet designs.
And here was my question. Could you play Tri-lands in a format where people are going to do what Lance is doing here? Turn 2, we played a Gnarled Scarhide and a Blood-Soaked Champion. And the Tri-lands are undoubtedly powerful. Jadine's does have a 1-mana play. She's going to Magma Spray the Blood-Soaked Champion.
Now, I was about to mention that exactly. I was looking over her list to see if she had any way to deal with this. She has 2 copies of Magma Spray, and she needed 1 that turn or things were going to get real ugly.
Yeah, swing for 4 by Lance, and he will play Painseer. No 3rd land for him, however. And we'll go back to Jadine. One card she does have that I'm very impressed with is she's playing for Seeker of the Way. Now, if you aren't familiar with the card, he's a 2/2 for 2 with Prowess that when you do play a spell to give him a non-creature spell, he also gains lifelink until end of turn. That to me is like the kind of card that could be pretty good against a mono black deck. Absolutely.
Now the mono black deck is flush with removal spells, so is that thing actually going to stay alive? That's a good question. But if it goes unchecked, it's, Patrick Chapin's article he discussed, he compared it to Baneslayer Angel, and yeah, it might as well be Baneslayer Angel.
It's a nightmare for aggro. We do see the turn 3 play of Mantis Rider here from Jadine. That's a 3/3 Flying Vigilance Haste. It'll knock Lance down to 17 and be a pretty nice blocker here. So we'll pass over to Lance. He has answers in hand, 2 Mogus's Marauders and a Hero's Downfall, but no 3rd land yet.
And the lack of a 3rd land, there's all sorts of consequences to this. He can't cast the Mogus Marauder. He can't cast the Hero's Downfall. As a result of that, he can't attack with the Painseer this turn. And now risks Jadine getting to untap with the Mantis Rider in play and mana at the ready.
He's going to go ahead and swing for 6. It looks like he's just offering up a creature here. I like that. It seems like the idea is that when he hits his 3rd land, he wants to have a lethal attack that turn, if possible.
And it's also possible that Jadine will respect the possibility of something like Boon of Erebos here and run a no blocks. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. Wow. All right. I have a question for you here, though. Isn't he just going to keep running the same gambit then? Like, eventually she's going to have to call him.
Well, the thing is now Jadine has mana available, and now she can potentially play over the top of tricks. But that was a huge win there for Lance. If Jadine goes ahead and puts blocks in front of that Painseer and then untaps with mana, Lance might be out of this game, even if he rips off running lands. But now, Jadine, in fact, appears to be the one who's behind.
Yeah. 3 damage puts Lance down to 14. She's going to leave up all 4 mana and pass the turn. The instants she has in her deck are Magma Spray, Titan Strength, God's Willing, Lightning Strike, Jeskai Charm, and Stoke the Flames.
That was a really, really gutsy attack. And the draw step for this turn from Lance was the 3rd land. So he needed to get that Painseer activation to get through the Painseer he just drew off of it to get to land number 3. So a really gutsy attack from Lance last turn, and it paid off.
And he's going to go for broke here. It's Mogus's Marauder. He's going to give the whole team haste and intimidate. That's 10 damage. Jadine may just be dead to this.
She needs 2 removal spells.
Even with 2 removal spells, this seems difficult. It'll put her to 1.
She's still behind, but we get to keep playing Magic as she has 2 removal spells.
Right. And he'll go to attacks. It's going to swing the entire team. We'll see. And she has no answer.
Wow, so, good on Lance. Good on Lance for that attack.
That was pretty good. That got him an extra point here to make that swing lethal. With the second Mogus as a Marauder, I'm not sure Jadine gets out of that situation in any way.
It's going to be hard no matter what.
Yeah.
But Lance, that attack there, I'll tell you, we saw a lot of that in the Invitational. Tom Ross with a lot of noteworthy bluffs on camera. When you're on camera, it's real hard to pull the trigger. Because if Jadine just goes and taps her Mantis Rider in front of your Painseer, you go, yep, it's dead.
Yeah, it's dead. Yeah, okay.
All your friends at home watching, whatever. It's something that lives in the archives of Magic forever. But Lance identified it as his only realistic way to win that game. I believe it was. I don't think he can win by saying go there. And instead of being down a game, he's up a game.
We go to the sideboard. Looking at game 1, Now, correct me if I'm wrong here, but this seems like it's really going to be a tough matchup for Jadine. The 3 1-drops, which Lance can do a lot of the time, don't seem very easy. Like, they seem like they're difficult for her to deal with unless she has a card like Seeker of the Way.
So I want to see if it's in her sideboard. A reprint that I'm dreading as a mono black aggro
There are
player
2 of them.
is Arc Lightning.
Yes.
That card's going to be real hard to beat. Real hard to beat. There's a lot of 1 toughness going on in this deck, and a lot of 2 toughness as well. So it's hard for Arc Lightning to be less than kill 2 creatures. Sometimes it's going to be kill 3 creatures. What else we got going on here?
Yeah, so she has 2 Arc Lightnings in her board. You're absolutely right. She has the remaining 2 Magma Sprays. You'd have to think she's going to use those as well.
For sure.
Outside of that, she has another God's Willing. That is probably a take it or leave it card. An interesting card here, which I'm not sure what matchup it's for. Probably it's for Burn Mirrors. She has Deflecting Palm in her deck.
Well, the one card that interests me in this deck a bit is the one Erase in the sideboard, because the mono black aggro deck is flush with enchantment creatures. There's so much bestow. Gnarled Scarhide,
absolutely.
Spiteful Return, Herald of Torment. So that's actually a card you can bring in pretty safely too.
Yeah, you can figure that one's a kill spell.
Yep. On the other side here, Lance with the Gray Merchant, 2 Bray Maggots, a Despise, 2 Bioblights, 3 Furrier Cures, 2 Dark Betrayal, 2 Empty the Pits, 2 Dictative Erebos. The only card that really intrigues me here is getting the 2 Bioblights, because you can be pretty sure that Jadine's deck is playing the full playset of Manus Riders.
Yeah, Jeskai is a deck that is looking to get a lot of mileage out of its creatures. It plays 12, and I would think killing one of them is great for the deck, especially because she has to tap out for them. I did want to run back to the Deflecting Palm in Jadine's sideboard and just ask you a little bit about that card. You see it over here on our screen. This is one, it prevents any damage from one source and then shoots that damage back to the controller.
It doesn't seem very good in this matchup because in my mind, Jadine's fight is against the board, not so much the damage race. That got out of control because Lance was able to build up a board and kill a Bogus Marauder. So this seems much more for mirror matches, things where you anticipate, things like Jeskai charms bouncing off each other, that sort of thing. I don't think she wants it here.
Yeah. Originally, that's for burn decks. Do you think it comes in, like, it's pretty narrow, right? She has 3s. That's a pretty big commitment.
It is pretty narrow, but it might be powerful enough in burn mirror matches that it warrants inclusion. Or against red decks packing Stoke the Flames, that sort of thing.
Sure, could definitely see that there. I imagine her deck is very close to being a burn deck despite being 3 colors. And we'll see Jadine on the play this time. We're on game 2. She starts once again with Mystic Monastery, setting up her mana base. Have to assume Lance is on a 1-drop, but it's going to be Thoughtseize. You see Magma Spray. This is a huge one. Magma Spray, Seeker of the Way, Arc Lightning. 3 cards that you really don't want to see with your mono black. A pair of lands, and then one of the Deflecting Palms, actually.
Okay, so we'll see where this goes. It still has the if Jadine's able to build up a board that's capable of blocking, then the card can be powerful.
Yeah, it's only if it deals damage to you.
Sure. It's still, any time where Jadine's getting creatures into play, the game's going to be very damage racy by the nature of her creatures.
Yeah. If the game turns into a damage race, the card's very good. If you're on Lance's side, I would think it's Seeker of the Way here. That card seems really, leaving her without a creature seems powerful to me.
Well, it depends. He also probably has some removal spells in his deck, and there's only so many creatures in Jadine's deck, so it's really important if he has creature removal spells in his hand to allow that to try to line up.
Yeah, he's going to take Seeker of the Way out of her hand. But you're right, Arc Lightning is very difficult to beat as well. Maybe he goes that direction.
Yeah. Now, there is 1 copy of Hall of Triumph in Lance's list, and I believe I saw it in his hand. If that's the case, it does give him a pretty powerful game plan against Arc Lightning, which is he can just play that first and then start deploying the threats, and then the Magma Spray doesn't really do anything, or it does very little, and the Arc Lightning is also much less powerful.
Tormented Hero's the play for Lance. He does have the Hall, as you mentioned. He has a fairly land-heavy hand here. 3 more swamps. Jadine makes Flooded Strand for the turn. See if she managed to hit one of her 3-drops, whether it's Rabble Master or Mantis Rider. The answer is no. And we pass back to Lance. His draw was, I believe, some black creature. Swings with Tormented Hero, sees if he can get a Magma Spray off it. He cannot. Despise was the draw for the turn. That hits a creature or planeswalker. I don't think that's going to hit against her.
There's only 14, 16 targets in the deck, not a lot.
Not a lot. And you see she's drawn 2 more lands. She still has the Arc Lightning, Deflecting Palm, and Magma Spray that he knew about from before.
And that's a spot where I would have tried to stick the Hall of Triumph, I think, because there's only what can you despise on turn 4 that really matters all that much? You know, that's the risk, because Jadine gets to untap and play a 4-drop. You don't really care about Chandra too much in that spot, I don't feel like. And, you know, giving up on the Hall of Triumph that turn is a huge cost, especially when you know Jadine has so much removal in her hand.
Well, you don't really know what you're up against yet.
That is part of it. That's definitely a factor.
And right now, if I'm Lance, I might just be wanting to keep Jadine off threats, right? Her hand is just burn spells and nothing else right now. So you'd think, hey, if I can get her planeswalker or her creature or whatever her finisher is, because I don't really know at this point, well, then I'm buying all the time in the world.
Right. Though it's not clear whose side is favored by both players buying time.
Yeah, that is interesting. I would imagine Jadine is okay with buying time.
Yeah, when Lance's hand has no creature removal, all of her creature draws are...
They're very good.
They're probably game-winning on their own, all of them.
Mystic Monastery played by Jadine. She's on a little bit of a land flit here, but Lance does not have too much aggression. Hall of Triumph will be cast. Lance with at least 2 more lands. And a Shivan Reef on Jadine's side. We'll see if Lance can get something on the board. He has 7 lands right now. He's going to play a Painseer.
And this is the way this game is shaping up, Arc Lightning worthy just on its own.
I'd have to imagine she'll pull the trigger on it. I don't think she can let that guy swing and untap.
Well, if her hand's all just straight, imagine her hand's just all efficient burn spells, it looks like she's going to kill it. I could see a world where she tries to play the Dark Confidant game of saying, okay, you have it, and I'm going to try to burn you out. But unless her hand already has multiple Jeskai charms, that seems way too risky to me.
Agreed. Spiteful returned as the play for Lance. That was his draw. It is a 2/2 thanks to Hall of Triumph. Looks like Magma Spray on Jadine's side, though, so she may have it covered. And indeed she does. So right now, Lance's creature is trading with Jadine's kill spells, waiting for something to break the parity here.
Yeah. Jadine just waiting on one of her creatures to break this game wide open.
Bloodsoaked Champion for Lance. Temple of Triumph for Jadine. So Jadine's deck actually does not have too many sources of card advantage in it. It has 2 Chandra, 2 Sarkhan, and 4 Goblin Rabblemaster. But outside of that, she's drawing 1 card a turn just like Lance.
She's relying a fair bit on her Scry lands to help smooth that out a little bit. But it is tough with these decks. You know, I had the same experience playing myself that if you don't draw a creature or your 1 creature dies, it takes you a while to get anything going.
And here is Seeker of the Way from Jadine. She took 3 off the Bloodsoaked Champion last turn, and she'll take 3 again. This is where it's advantageous for her, though. If she has non-creature spells, she's going to be hitting back with a Lifelinker. It's going to be pretty hard to race.
It's a huge swing. I mean, this card connecting even once might be hard for Lance to overcome.
Lightning Strike will hit the Bloodsoaked Champion. That Prowess is Seeker, and the 3/3 Lifelink is going to swing. He's going to go for the Bioblight. That's a risky Bioblight. As if Jadine had another non-creature spell, it would have gotten him.
Yeah, but it's not, you know, he can't really take that hit there, so it's...
Yeah, he's forced into doing it. She didn't have the trick, but she did have another Seeker of the Way. So Seeker, the second Seeker comes in for just 2, no way to pump it yet. Lance is at 16. Both players with more lands than their decks bargained for, both with 8 in play. Seeker continues to hit. Jadine is going to stoke the flames at Lance. That'll get a Hero's Downfall from him on Seeker of the Way, but Lance does take 4. He goes to 12.
Great exchange there for Lance. I think he would have been happy to take a couple more shots from that Seeker to try to induce some sort of spell like we just saw of Jadine.
He did get Jadine to point to stoke the flames at his face and not at one of his creatures. She plays Temple of Triumph and is going to leave it on top. And Mogus's Marauder is the play for Lance Alvarez. That guy's a 3/3 with haste thanks to Hall of Triumph. And he'll swing in. Jadine only with 2 cards in her hand. Lance has 2 as well. I believe one of his is a Swamp.
Yeah, I believe he's on Swamp Hero's Downfall currently.
Jadine down to 8. She just passes.
Pretty scary spot if you're a creature deck with your burn opponent drawing and saying go after scrying on top.
Either she has nothing or you're almost dead. Jadine goes down to 5. There are no War Leader's Helixes in this deck, so Jadine can't race that way. But you're right, she may just have 12 points of burn. We will see another land passes back. She's down to 5. You have to make a play pretty quick here. And Spiteful Return bestowed on Lance, that could be for lethal. We'll see if it...
It is a lethal attack. I mean, this is 3, 4, 5.
She's going to Deflecting Palm the 3 damage off Mogus's Marauder back at Lance. So she takes 2 off the attack. And actually, that's loss of life, I believe. So but then 3. So she goes to 3. Lance will go down to 9. And how is Jadine set this up? She's going to Stoke the Flames him.
Yeah, I think she may have lethal here. And this Deflecting Pain was known about from
the 4, yeah.
The Thoughtseize earlier.
And then Jeskai Charm does the remaining 4 points of damage. Jadine with the quick turnaround here. Lance just left looking at a Hero's Downfall and a Bioblight. He has no more plays, and we're on to game 3.
So yeah, the Deflecting Pain put him in a rock and a hard place there. He couldn't attack and he couldn't not attack, so.
Yeah, well, it was it was just another 4 damage burn spell. It was her Boros Charm, if you would, but it even gained 3.
Yeah. No, it was good in that spot. The game had to take a pretty weird tact for that to come up, but it did essentially lock Lance out once the game got to that stage.
I suppose, so you're saying there aren't too many situations where you can expect Deflecting Palm to deal 4?
Against mono black aggro, it is possible because of the bestow creatures. Things like, Herald of Torment, for example, that can make a creature very large. Right. So it can come up, definitely. I'm actually looking, okay, there are 4 Herald of Torments. It's been 2 games and we haven't seen it yet. I was just double checking, but it is in the list. And a card that you asked about earlier in the broadcast, Grey Merchant of Asphodel, we'll be seeing this. There is 1 copy in his board.
Yeah, we have seen that in the sideboards of mono black aggro before, right?
And even if it's happening for just 2, that's a big swing. It's tough in this matchup because Jadine is bringing so much removal to the table post-board that, is your devotion count going to be really built up in the game that you're not just clobbering her in, It's tough to imagine. But even coming in and journeying for 2 is pretty good.
Yeah, and that game to me seemed like it actually would typically favor Lance. One thing to note is Jadine doesn't play a card like Anger of the Gods, so most of her removal is 1 for 1, with the exception of Arc Lightning. That's her possible 2 for 1. But because Lance had a Hall of Triumph in play, that turned off Arc Lightning as a 2 for 1. So she was just able to trade 1 for 1 kill spells and build up to what turned out to be 16 points of burn.
Right.
It was 2 Stokes, a Jeskai Charm, and a Deflecting Palm. But most of the time I would think that mono black aggro can race the draw 20 points of burn plan.
I think so too. A lot of it is just, if Jadine's able to get one of her creatures unchecked, it's a disaster for Lance because they all control combat in such a powerful way, or they race too quickly, or gain life, or whatever the case may be. But if they're just playing my creatures against your removal spells, that's a game that Lance is really favored in. So to me, the games are a lot about, can Jadine get something into play and get it to stick? I think she's a pretty big favorite in those games, but that's a challenging thing to do given the time that Lance is giving her and the amount of removal in his deck.
We are on to game 3. Lance Alvarez will be on the play this time. In game 1, we saw him start with 3 1-drops over the course of 2 turns, and Jadine was never really able to recover from that. Lance missed his 3rd land drop twice in a row, but it didn't seem to slow him down.
Though those curve outs are going to be much more challenging when you know that Arc Lightning's in your opponent's deck.
Do you try to play around it even, or do you just accept your losses?
Depends on what my hand's like.
All right. Lance will be going down to 6.
Sometimes I'll try, and sometimes I'm not going to try.
We'll see if he can get a fast start, though. Certainly, I think where he has an advantage is the curve of these 2 decks.
Yes. He's much faster out of the gate, and Jadine's got lands that come into play tapped. She's got Apocalypse Pain lands. There's costs being paid all along the way for her to even just get her spells online. So it's a subtle thing, but it is a place where Lance has a pretty big edge.
Yeah, and outside of the 2 Arc Lightning, has no sweeper. But postboard having 4 Magma Sprays certainly helps the matchup.
I'm interested, this is sort of unrelated, but how many Radiant Fountains can you fit into Mono Black aggro? Can you play one?
Can you play Radiant Fountains?
Can you play one? Is one free?
Oh, you need to have your triple 1-drop starts.
That's true.
Tormented Hero. There's our first 1-drop from Lance. Jadine has a Mountain and a Magma Spray. A pretty neat miscut there, actually.
Yep.
Painseer's the turn 2 play for Lance. See if she can continue up the curve with kill spells. It is Temple of Triumph. And let's see where she keeps it. Remember, she's up 2 cards this game, because of being on the draw and the mulligan.
Although, if she doesn't have an answer to this Painseer, she does. Now she can really start to leverage it.
Yeah, second Magma Spray, and that seems like exactly what Jadine wants to do in this matchup, is get some quick early removal. Lance goes for Blood-Soaked Champion. He does have the Hall of Triumph in his hand. Jadine draws for the turn. She didn't have a 3rd land, but she scryed to the top.
I mean, I'm curious to see what was going on there.
Hall of Triumph will make Jadine take 3. What was so good that you'd want to keep it there? Her next draw, not a land, but it is Seeker of the Way.
Oh.
Guy demands a kill spell.
And Lance ripped the Hero's Downfall this turn, which is really good for him because this game would have gotten out of control otherwise.
Bloodsoaked Champion swings for 3. I like how hard Bloodsoaked Champion is to block here. If you block him and trade with him, he just gets himself back.
Yeah. Bloodsoaked Champion's the real deal.
Jadine Lightning strikes it on her turn so that Lance can't rebuy it. But then Lance Hero's Downfalls away at the Seeker and plays Gnarled Scarhide. Jadine with another Lightning Strike passes back. She was still stuck on 2 lands, but if you see her yard, it is Magma Spray, 2 Magma Sprays, 2 Lightning Strikes.
And this is the toughest thing, you know. Now with that Bloodsoaked Champion in Lance's graveyard, Jadine has to kill basically everything Lance puts on the table.
Yeah, Jadine finally hits that 3rd land. It's Mantis Rider. She has to take a damage for it, but still has a fair number of life points to work with. Lance with Hero's Downfall and Bioblight. And there's a 3rd card here that I want to talk a little bit about. This is in his sideboard. He's one of his 2 copies of Empty the Pits.
So my buddy Craig Krempels is also playing some Empty the Pits in the sideboard of his Mono Black beatdown deck this weekend. And he said that this card is so good in the control matchups.
Yeah.
And Lance is building up.
He's building up. Hero's Downfall takes care of Jadine's 2nd Mantis Rider. You see he has 4 in play, 5 cards in the graveyard. So the conversion rates on this thing are pretty expensive. 6 mana for 1 zombie, 8 for 2, 10 for 3. But right now he has access to 9, and this is 10, so that's going to be 3 zombies here.
Looks like he does not want to pull the trigger.
Well, you can do it on end step. It's an instant.
Oh, for sure.
Goblin Rabble Master to play for Jadine. Well, that's probably fine. Remember, he has Hall of Triumph in play, so these zombies are all 3/3s.
Yeah, this is a real thing.
He's gonna wait another turn. He's gonna Bioblight the Rabble Master, and now I think she has one of her God's Willings here. So he had the option to make 3 zombies, but he opted not to. He wanted to Bioblight this turn.
Sure, just squeeze as much as possible. Jadine's not putting him under any pressure. He's at 20, so he can just trade 1 for 1 like this, and it's going to be game over.
Well, what he presumed was a 1-for-1 trade.
Yeah.
God's willing will happen to the Rabble Master.
Though I will say that if I was playing a mono black aggro list with Empty the Pit in the sideboard, I would be playing 8 fetch lands. Lance is on 22 swamps, but I would have some Bloodstained Mires and some polluted deltas in this deck.
Sure. That is probably one of the best, that little extra value that fetch lands have in the set. Right? Just filling your graveyard with cards. A swing for 6 here from Jadine, and she's going to Jeskai Charm, I believe, to 1/1 and lifelink her team.
Looks that way, yeah. I mean, this is 3 points of damage, so it's pretty close to a shock effect, or a 4 damage effect here, and it's a lot of life.
It's 9 life. Jadine will go back up to 20 on this attack here. And I feel like we're going to be seeing that mode a lot more than we saw it on Azorius Charm.
Yeah, that sounds right. Because it's going to go into these sort of tempo aggressive shells.
Jadine had to pain for that, so she's at 19, not 20. End step, Empty the Pits will be cast by Lance. That's for 3.
Yeah. Confirming that she does correctly have a mana up here.
Yep. And then he's delving 6 cards away, so 4 black, 3 and 3 for XX. That'll be 3 zombie tokens. They are all 3/3s, thanks to Hall of Triumph. They do come into play tapped because that's what zombies do. And that's why they couldn't be on the block this turn. That's going to get untapped with them. He has a Spiteful Return as his draw.
You've seen quite a bit of Empty the Pits thus far. Relative to expectations coming in, we've seen a lot of this card.
I wasn't sure if this card was, like, I get that it's an end step making tokens card, which is good. It seemed expensive, and I wasn't sure if decks would be able to play it. Right now, the answer looks like yes, at least mono black aggro can. And with cards like Hall of Triumph, it's pretty good. We'll see how much attacking Lance wants to do. This is a pretty interesting question. Jadine is playing a deck with a lot of burn. She does have a Rabble Master. If he puts himself to 7, she may just burn him out. Swings 2 zombies, that'll put Jadine down to 13.
But he also needs to try to close this game out as quickly as possible, too, because her draw steps are so dangerous.
Absolutely. Blood-Soaked Champion from Lance, and just a cast Spiteful Returns. No bestow there. Remember, Blood-Soaked Champion can't block. Spiteful Return can, though. Lance living back 2 blockers. And Returned is a 2/2, capable of taking down a Goblin, thanks to Hall.
But it feels like it's going to be really hard for that Spiteful Return to get to block. And then, even in the optimistic world where Lance keeps everything, he is still short of lethal on the way back.
He's short of lethal. The dangerous part here is that Jadine can push 2 damage through no matter what right now. And 3 + 4 is a very reasonable pair of burn spells for her to have.
And she's been missing land drops the whole game. So what's going on with her hand right now? It's probably burn spells.
Yeah, could have another Jeskai Charm. There are a lot of things here that are difficult for Lance to deal with. Remember, the 1/1s have to attack. Let's see what she chooses to do with the Rabble Master. Full 4 cards in her hand. She only has 1 source of blue mana. So blue really is the splash color in this deck. I think it's just for Mantis Rider and Jeskai Charm in the main. Otherwise, it is a still red-white deck.
The elements of this deck, I mean, the core strategy is it's a red-white deck.
Yeah.
So just touching blue for a couple of the high-powered Jeskai cards in this wedge.
All right. So you see her weighing just how much damage she can push. If the Rabble Master swings, you have to think it's going to trade for the zombie or the Spiteful Return.
I don't think Lance can say,
yeah,
I'll chump block it. I'll eat one of your tokens here. It's too much damage.
And the question is whether or not Jadine can afford to trade it away. If she trades it away, she loses all her board presence and then is dead in probably 2 attacks.
Well, she does get to connect for 3 points of damage in that world, knocking Lance to 6. And I can't imagine the combination of cards in her hand does not allow her to kill Lance over the course of 2 turns from 6. So it just may be Jadine trying to figure out some line of play that gives her the most insurance against whatever Lance draws the following turn.
It looks like she also has a Mantis Rider and had to decide whether or not to cast it. The answer is going to be no. Mantis Rider, I believe Deflecting Palm as well in there, which that card could be pretty relevant here.
Big insurance policy here.
And Rabble Master will swing along with the Goblins. So Rabble Master is a 5/2. That's going to have to be blocked. It gets blocked by a 3/3 zombie. They'll trade. Spiteful Return will take down a Goblin. Lance will take 2, putting him to 7. And now we will go back to Jadine's side.
So Lance has left his board in such a way that he is presenting lethal next turn. He has exactly 13 coming across.
There's that Deflecting Palm again,
it's gonna
right?
Be, yeah.
2 games in a row might get him.
Be really surprised if Lance can beat it if it's in her hand.
Jadine with no plays passes back, and I have to think it is. She had the option to Mantis Rider there and didn't.
Yeah.
That's a card I did not expect to see a lot of this weekend. It's Deflecting Palm.
Same. Well, the Jeskai deck feels like it's the most, there's the most moving parts in it, It's the hardest.
Sure.
It feels like the hardest deck to build because can you really build a burn strategy right now with the cards that exist? How many creatures do you want? What are the threats? It's tough.
The shell's fragile, right? It only has 12 creatures, so you don't get to close out games by ever really winning on the board.
Though Mantis Rider is a really attractive threat to be playing if everyone's on Corsair or Crewfix, Sylvan Caryatid, and they're trying to win the game with Planeswalkers. Mantis Rider does a lot of good work against all those cards.
But what a draw for Lance. It's Mogus's Marauder, and that might be enough.
Well, it allows him to play over the top
of Deflecting Palm.
of one copy of Deflecting Palm. But if Jadine has a removal spell and a Deflecting Palm and can cast everything, she's still fine.
Well, she has to take a damage there. She's going to go ahead and stoke the flames, the Spiteful returned. And she had double red to do that, so this will only be a swing for 12.
Yep.
Jadine at 13 finds the line. So it's a swing for 6 on Lance Alvarez's side. Puts Jadine down to 7. She's going to get another turn. But she didn't make too many inroads into his life total. The question is whether or not she'll be able to kill him.
Well, the Mantis Rider on the way back, can she afford to take a point of damage here? Yes. No. Going to 6 is a huge deal here.
So it's possible that Deflecting Palm could draw the game as well. That's not... We'll see when, she can draw it if not win it. Depending on what burn spell she has.
Yeah, this is... If she only had a basic island instead of one of the Shivan Reefs, it'd be so easy, but going from 7 to 6 here, facing down so many 3-power creatures, it's a big cost.
See whether or not she wants to, and indeed she does. It's going to go ahead and pain for the blue to make Mantis Rider there. Mantis Rider is going to swing. She can block 3 things here. Deflecting Palm the 4th.
That will knock Lance down to 2, and then she has all sorts of, cards on the way back that can win the game.
For Jadine, it just seems like this is about staying alive.
Yeah.
And I think she's done it.
Lance doesn't have a great attack because if he attacks with too little, she can just chump block with the tokens. And if she attacks with too much, then the Deflecting Palm gets him.
What Lance would really like would be another Mogus's Marauder.
I mean, I think Lance has to just attack with everything. He has no other line of play here. If he says go, if he says go, then she attacks with Mantis Rider, and then you're dead to nearly anything.
Right. So you need to make sure that Mantis Rider blocks, and you need to get all her creatures off the board.
You just have to hope that her last card in the hand, is something that or one of the cards left over in her hand is something you can beat. It's hard because again, she's missing land drops the entire time, so her hand's probably pretty loaded or pretty versatile. But I don't think he can win by blocking. So
if he goes down to 2 here, there are very few cards that don't kill him.
Yeah.
So the all-out swing, as you said here, it's going to be 12 incoming. Jadine will put a Goblin on Mogus's Marauder, a Goblin on Bloodsoaked Champion. She has the Deflecting Palm. It looks like she's deciding whether or not to put Mantis Rider on a creature. And I think the answer is no. She wants to make sure she has those lethal points of damage next turn. Still deciding on the blocks. And it is going to be a Deflecting Palm, picking a zombie. So that zombie will hit Lance instead of hitting Jadine. So Lance will go to 2, Jadine to 3.
And now if Lance did not draw a removal spell for this Mantis Rider, which he probably didn't, because he probably would have just cast that straight away on the Mantis Rider, Jadine should be moving to 3-0.
Really well navigated here on Jadine's part. Lance had a ton of pressure here by not blocking with Mantis Rider. Looks, she now represents lethal. The guy doesn't actually die. The zombie just deals damage to Lance instead of Jadine. Yeah. Does that?
Yeah. Zombie's there.
Zombie's still alive. He didn't.
For now. You might not be live, but
there are a lot of cards like that that make the creatures redirect the damage to themselves or something like that. Deflecting Palm just goes to the player. But it's very aggressively costed, especially for that kind of harm's way effect. We'll see, and that is it. Jadine 2-1 defeats Lance Alvarez, and her Jeskai Tempo deck starts out 3-0.
Was able to, what I thought was the critical piece of the game plan here. Can she get a creature in play to stick? Everything becomes very easy. After that, her Mantis Rider and her Rabble Master went uncontested for a while, and that gave her the advantage she needed to, leverage the burn spells and the removal spells she had access to.